Located in the Peloponnese region of Greece, Mycenae was one of the most important settlements of the Mycenaean civilization, which flourished from around 1600 to 1100 BC. In this video, we are going to explore the Acropolis, the most famous tombs and its archaeological museum. This is Aventuras a pie de página. I'm Athanasia, your guide for today. First, let's talk a bit of myths regarding Mycenae. According to legends, Mycenae was founded by Perseus, son of Zeus and Danae, a princess from Argos. Perseus ordered the construction of the defensive walls to a race of giants with one eye, called Cyclops. That is the reason why these walls, built with huge blocks of stone, are known as Cyclopean walls. Another legend claims Atreus was the first king of Mycenae. Atreus was son of Pelops, which gives the name to the entire region. His successor and son was Agamemnon, the leader of the expedition to Troy, according to the Iliad by Homer. And according to the Oresteia by Aeschylus, Agamemnon, when he returned from Troy, was murdered by his wife, Clitemnestra, and his lover, Aegisthus. In revenge, his daughter Electra convinces her brother Orestes to kill her own mother and his lover. This is why the female counterpart of the Oedipus complex is known as the Electra complex. Several important tombs of the area are named after these characters. Starting with the Acropolis, the first we notice is the large defensive walls, built with huge blocks of stones. Although the Acropolis is huge, sadly, the area open to the public is quite small and limited. The main entrance to the Acropolis is known as the Lion Gate. The gate is a massive and imposing construction, standing 3.1 meters wide and 2.95 meters high at the threshold. The opening was closed by a double door. The gate consists of two great monoliths capped with a huge lintel that measures 4.5 by 2 meters. Above, the masonry courses form a corbelled arch to distribute the weight off the lintel. On top of the lintel, there is a great limestone slab on which two confronted lions, carved in high relief, stand on either sides of a central Mycenaean-type column. The heads of the animals were fashioned separately and are missing. On the opposite side of the Acropolis on the northeast, there is a second, smaller double gate, which it is still impressive, although it is not lavishly decorated. Next to the Lion's Gate, there were a lot of buildings which included granaries and workshops. Also, there was a giant grave circle, which we'll explore later in the video. Access to the palace was done through a columned building called propylaea, of which only the foundations are preserved. The palace complex consisted of a large number of small rooms around a porticated central square. Sadly, it is not properly explained. Behind the palace, there was a series of workshops that you can only see from outside. The last impressive detail was a large underground cistern that stored water for the palace. The water came from a spring 300 meters to the east, and it was channeled with clay pipes. The aqueduct could be closed to prevent the poisoning of the water in case of attack. We visited the cistern a few years ago, but now it is closed to the public, and you can only descend half of the way. Outside the Acropolis there are other two sets of buildings, both by the main road. One group next to the tomb of Clitemnestra, known as the House of the Oil Merchant, which were dedicated to the production of olive oil. And the second group of buildings, next to the tomb of Agamemnon, known as the Panagia Houses, which consisted of 3 buildings. The Mycenaean culture used 4 types of burials: cist graves, shaft graves, chamber tombs, and tholos. Inside the archaeological site, there are only 3 types: shaft graves, tholos, and a few cists. Shaft graves were deep rectangular structures, lined with stones, which could hold several bodies plus offerings. There are 2 groups of shaft graves in Mycenae. The grave circle A is a 16th century BC royal cemetery, located to the south of the Lion Gate. At the moment, it is closed to the public, but we have some pictures from when it was possible to go inside. This burial complex was initially constructed outside the walls of Mycenae and ultimately enclosed in the Acropolis when the fortification was extended during the 13th century BC. The site circle has a diameter of 27.5 meters and contains 6 shaft graves. The largest of the shaft graves measures about 6.5 meters in length and about 4.1 meters in width. A total of 19 bodies of men, women, and children were buried here, with 2 to 5 bodies per shaft. It has been suggested that a mound was constructed over each grave, and funeral stelae were erected, some of which are in display in the Archaeological Museum. The grave Circle B, with a diameter of 28 meters, is situated at the main entrance of Mycenae. The burial structure was enclosed by a circular stone wall, 1.5 meters thick and 1.2 meters high. The circle hosts a total of 26 graves, 14 of which are shaft graves and the rest simple cists. Cists were small rectangular boxes made by stone slabs and could hold only one person. A total of 24 people were found in the shafts, while 6 of the shaft graves were family tombs in which several occupants were found. Most shafts were marked by a pile of stones, and on 4 of them stelae were erected with hunting scenes. The tholos tomb consists of 3 parts: the hallway or dromos, the gate or stomion, and the huge chamber called thalamos. The tholos, associated to Aegisthus, dates approximately from around 1500 BC, and it is the oldest tholos tomb inside the archaeological site. The dromos is approximately 22 meters long by 5 meters wide, while the thalamos is 14 meters in diameter and would originally have stood around 13 meters tall. A relieving triangle was built above the tomb's lintel, helping to direct the stress from the weight of the masonry towards the supported ends of the lintel stone, and therefore to reduce the torque applied to the stone. Such a feature would become universal in later tholos tombs at Mycenae, but the tomb of Aegisthus is the earliest tholos to feature it. Other innovations include the lining of the dromos with rubble and the use of porous ashlar masonry for the facade, both of which foreshadow architectural conventions common in later tombs. The facade of the stomion is faced with large blocks of porous stone ashlar, behind which the structure is built from rubble masonry like that which lines the dromos. Next to the tomb of Aegisthus is the tomb associated with Clitemnestra. The tomb of Clitemnestra shares several architectural features with the treasure of Atreus, such as the combination of conglomerate and limestone, which we will see later. The tomb chamber is constructed throughout of ashlar conglomerate masonry, has a diameter of 13.4 meters, and the surface of the tomb was covered with a coat of white plaster. However, the tomb of Clitemnestra displays slightly more advanced technical features, with rows of curved stones continuing around the structure at the same level of the lintel. This may indicate that the tomb of Clitemnestra was a slightly later construction compared to the one of Atreus. In Hellenistic times, Mycenae was briefly resettled. The colony lasted less than a century, but during this period, the settlers built a theater on top of this tomb, of which a row of seats is still visible today. Finally, the largest and most impressive tomb of Mycenae, known as the Tomb of Agamemnon or the Treasure of Atreus, is one of the most modern ones. Here we can see few very interesting construction details. First, the lintel of the gate was one massive stone, although now it is fractured in 2 parts. Second, like the tomb of Clitemnestra, it had decorative half-columns on the sides made out of gypsum, with intricate patterns. These half-columns were hanged on the wall, as we can see the fittings. Fragments of the columns are exhibited in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. And third, it is one of the few tholos tombs, which contains a side chamber, being the only other we know in Orchomenos. Inside the archaeological site, there is a small museum, which contains some of the findings at Mycenae and its surroundings, including some minor frescoes, Funerary stelae from the circular graves. Funerary offerings. And imported items from the rest of Europe, and even faraway places like Afghanistan. However, the most interesting artifacts found in Mycenae are exhibited on the main hall of the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, including the so-called Mask of Agamemnon. The most impressive frescoes, the most impressive stone stelae, the linear beta script tablets, and the ornamental columns that adorned the entrance of the treasure of Atreus. If you are interested in visiting Mycenae, there are intercity buses from Athens. The normal ticket for accessing the main archaeological site, the treasure of Atreus, and the museum costs €20 in 2026, and there is a reduced ticket for €10 for senior citizens, for students, and for all visitors during low season. Also, you can visit for free during the first and third Sunday of each month, from November until March. It is open every day of the week, but the opening hours vary with the seasons, so check the official website for updated information. To visit the 3 places, you'll need at least 2 hours. Also, if you feel more adventurous, we recommend you explore the area outside the official archaeological site, where you will be able to find other monumental tombs, plus hundreds of minor tombs and burials, which we already covered in a previous video. In fact, we have an entire playlist where we explore different sites of the Mycenaean civilization. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more historical adventures from around Greece. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover next, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next adventure.